श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरन मोहन जू की जाय नित्य विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टतर शत शिमार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जाय नित्य विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टतर शत शिमार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जाय नित्य विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टतर शत शिमार भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जाय नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतर शत शिशुमार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जाय नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतर शत शिशुमार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जाय नितिल विष्णु महाभगवत श्लोकोक्षर बाबाजी महाराज की जाय नितिल विश्व शिल सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जाय नित्य विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम शिल जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जाय श्री रूपानुग गौरीय गुरु वार्ग की जाय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जाय श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जाय नाम आचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जाय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जाय सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जाय श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जाय श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जाय श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जाय श्री भक्ति देवी की जाय श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जाय श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जाय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीश्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणेति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। पञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनं हृदन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतम्। नष्टप्रयेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टकी। तवैवास्मि तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमां चरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीन अपराधलक्षाय क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये Kripa Tvam Sharanam Prapana Vrinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hari Bol, everybody. Kishori Mohan Prabhu, Nari Hari Prabhu, Bhavatarani Mataji, Gargarajji, Dandavat Pranams, everybody. So now we continue. Let's go over the last few verses. So then Shri Krishna emerged from the Yamuna and started roaming in a charming flower garden on the riverbank. A gentle breeze was blowing, making the whole atmosphere vibrant with the heavy aroma of all the blossoming flowers growing on the land and in the water. Surrounded by the Vraja maidens and the bees, he seemed like an intoxicated king of elephants, wandering about with his she elephants. O Parikshit, this autumn night, which included many other nights within it, was extremely beautiful. The whole area was lit up by the moonlight, and all those ecstatic ingredients of the autumn season that the poets describe were fully present. Bhagavan Sri Krishna performed transcendental pastimes along with his most beloved gopis on the bank of the Yamuna, in her waters, and in the forest, and thus fulfilled his purpose. By this Leela, he completely subdued Cupid, who derives his existence from Sri Krishna, as well as the concomitant actions and reactions resulting from mundane lust. One second. I'm just checking to see if I got the right. Yes. Okay. Maharaj Parikshit questioned, O best of sages, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the Lord of the entire creation, advented along with his plenary portion Balaram to establish religiosity and to annihilate irreligion. He himself institutes, guards, and instructs religion and moral principles. Why then did he violate them by touching other men's wives? Bhagavan Sri Krishna is eternally self-satisfied. His heart is never touched by extraneous desires. What was his intention in performing such a despicable act? O virtuous one, Sri Shukadeva Goswami, you who strictly adhere to religious principles, be merciful and dissipate this doubt. One second. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, O king, sometimes the Supreme Lord and some very powerful godly personalities courageously carry out some scandalous action, but the purity of their character prevails, just as fire remains uncontaminated while devouring everything it touches. Those who are incompetent should not even think of imitating the activities of powerful controllers. If some foolish person does so, he brings destruction upon himself. Rudra drank the ocean of halahal poison, but if anyone else tries to do this, he will be burnt to ashes. The statements of superior competent authorities like Shiva, their statements should be accepted as valid, and one should act in accordance with their words. Occasionally, they also behave freely, defying accepted moral conduct. So, an intelligent person should follow their favorable instructions that coincide with their exemplary conduct. Hey Prabhu, such powerful personalities are free of false ego and have no selfish motives in performing any pious act. And when they perform some apparently impious action, they do not suffer any negative reaction because they have transcended concepts like gain and loss, piety and impiety. If this is a situation of the competent demigods and great men at the level of Ishwar, then how can the supreme controller and creator of all beings, including animals, humans, and demigods, be governed by the laws of worldly piety and impiety meant for his subjects? When devotees serve the dust of the Lord's lotus feet, they become satiated. Yogis, by the power of their meditation on him, cut the bonds of their karma and roam around freely without getting entangled. The same Supreme Person manifests his transcendental form out of his own free will. So how can he be under any kind of bondage? Wow, long. In order to bestow mercy upon the devotees as well as the conditioned souls, Bhagavan Shri Krishna manifests his human-like form and performs such extraordinary pastimes like Raslila that anyone who hears about them becomes exclusively devoted to him. The cowherd men, deluded by the potency of Yogamaya, saw their wives with him in their houses. Therefore, they were not suspicious of Krishna. Oh, wait, is this the verse we're on? 37. Yes, okay, sorry. Let me just see if anybody's there. Hari Bol, Prajumna Prabhu, and Raseshwari Mataji. I think I posted the link. Yeah, I did. I did post the link. Hari Bol, Janardhan Prabhu, Prajumna Prabhu, Mantramurti Ji. Mantramurti. Mantramurti Mataji. Okay. Nasuyan kalu Krishnaya mohitastasya mayaya manyamana saparshvastan swan swan daran vrajokasa. The cowherd men, deluded by the potency of Yoga Maya, saw their wives with them in their houses. Therefore, they were not suspicious of Krishna. Srila Śrīdhara Swamipad's Bhāvārtha Dīpikā. Those who act against the Vedas give this type of justification for their unapproved behavior. Their purport is that if those do not have, their purport is that if those who do not have any special authority get involved in forbidden activities, then these are considered sinful. That is why this verse Nasuyan has been spoken. Srila Jīva Gosvāmī Pad's Vaiṣṇava Toṣaṇī. One might object that Sri Krishna is the Supersoul, and he performs endless pleasurable pastimes with the gopis, his eternal beloveds. This eradicates the paramour relationship. But by logic, his aspect as Supersoul has been slightly established, not in full. This is the first point. Okay, the first point is that his aspect of Supersoul has been slightly established, not in full. This is the first point. The second point is that the Vrajagopis are eternal beloveds, so they are not marked by any blemish coming from a paramour relationship. So, alas, why are they called adulteresses? This means that they have been married to someone else. They may have been eternal beloveds in eternal lifetimes, but at present they are the wives of the cowherdmen. This can be explained by saying that Bhagavan expands such pastimes to bestow mercy and to make his devotees staunchly dedicated to bhakti. Another question may come. By this Leela, how is Sri Krishna showing his mercy to his topmost devotees, the residents of Raj? Because he is engaged in amorous play with the cowherd maiden's wives, they will naturally resent him. So all those eternal beloveds underwent the eternal beloveds underwent the suffering of having to marry other men, and their husbands had to face embarrassment by Bhagavan's activities. Hearing such narrations, how can the devotees remain steady in practicing their bhakti, and what to speak of non-devotees? The present verse has been spoken to remove such apprehension. Here, the principle of logical conclusion is stronger than the storyline itself. So the residents of Raj did not have any envy towards Sri Krishna. Certainly not. Kalu. The proof is Sri Brahma's statement about Sri Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-35. He said, "You are the only focal point of all the Vrajavasis, whose households, treasures, dearmost relatives, friends, children, very lives, and heart's desires rest on you." In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:6-10, Sri Shukadev Goswami tells Maharaj Parikshit, "The Vrajavasis have dedicated their souls, their dear ones, their wealth, wives, and desires of the heart, everything to Krishna." And certainly the cowherd men, being Vrajavasis, never felt any envy for Krishna. So if it is said that the residents of Raj, who are the object of Sri Krishna's mercy, may or may not know that their wives were with Krishna and not with them, still his behavior with them was not proper. So someone might say that. Still, his behavior with them was not proper. To reconcile this, it is said that his beloved gopis became the wives of these gopas, and due to delusion, the cowherd men saw them as their wives. But in the absolute sense, the gopis are married to Krishna. Thus, he automatically attracted them, and the Vrajavasis could not know this. So wherein lies the fault? And actually, isn't it all the gopis got married during that time when Krishna expanded into all the gopas? So even literally, they married Krishna. It is a well-known fact that the gopis are Sri Krishna's eternal beloveds, so it is impossible for there to be any other meaning. The gopis are immaculate. To prove this by logical conclusion is like sweeping a spotless house with a clean broom. To increase the joy of Sri Krishna's variegated love-filled pastimes, Yogamaya bewildered the cowherd men who assumed Sri Krishna's wives as their own. Thus they saw the gopis inside their houses next to them. Tasya means his. Tasya has been analyzed in two ways, this word meaning his. One, the cowherd men were married to other cowherd women created by Yogamaya. They were not married to Krishna's eternal beloveds. Okay, wait, sorry. So they were not married to Krishna's eternal beloveds. These gopas considered these eternal beloveds as their wives, but actually they were not. These gopis were protected by Yogamaya. The gopas were covered over and could not understand this. The cowherd men heard some rumors, but they did not believe them. These gopis, Krishna's eternal beloveds, never ever saw these cowherd men as their husbands. In this way, the theory of husbandhood is obliterated. Those so-called husbands were never tied up in a marriage, so that is why they did not make allegations against Krishna. Shukadev Goswami also says the same thing, but he did not use the word envy. 2. So that's the first point about Tasya, his has been analyzed. Now this is the second way. 2. After Krishna called the gopis for Raslila, Yogamaya created duplicates, whom the cowherd men saw in their houses next to them. These gopas accepted them as their wives, so they could not feel any resentment towards Krishna or suspect any wrongdoing. Yet, if one is convinced that these shadow forms of Bhagavan's beloveds slept on the same bed with their Gopa husbands, then one is mistaken. Swaparshva, next to them. The Gopas saw these gopis next to them, truly thinking, "This is my wife." But this was just a delusion created by Yogamaya who cheated them. Shri Krishna pronounced the gopis' superlative glories in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:32-22. That's the previous chapter, verse 22. Naparayeham niravatya samyujam. Your loving relationship with me is completely pure, free from any trace of desire for personal gratification. This indicates that Shri Krishna is not touched by the fault of mixing with anyone else's wives. Gargacharya also gives the same meaning by Kaimutika Nyaya in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:8-18. Those who love Krishna are vastly fortunate. They cannot be defeated by their enemies, just as a demigod sheltered by Vishnu cannot be overcome by demons. Brahma Samhita 5:56 also confirms this. Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha. The Lakshmis are the beloveds, and the supreme male is the one and only lover. All the trees are wish-fulfilling, and the earth is desire stone. This proves that the paramour relationship of the Vrajadevis is the trick of Maya. Actually, they are Sri Krishna's eternal beloveds. This has been affirmed here. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:29-8 presents another point of consideration. Ta Varyamana Patibhi. The so-called husbands of the gopis, their parents, and dear relatives were prohibiting them from leaving their houses. The question comes, did these cowherd men know about the gopis' attraction to Krishna or not? If they did not know, then they cannot be jealous of him. If it is assumed that they were envious, then this conclusion that they did not know cannot be accommodated. But if the gopas knew that Sri Krishna was calling their wives, then that is why they stopped them. Afterwards, when they saw their wives next to them in their houses, they might have thought, "Our wives are obedient to us." So they harbored no resentment toward wives. But when they came to know that these gopis were going due to Krishna's beckoning, then they could naturally become jealous of him. In this way, the question is settled. So the explanation is that the cowherd men did not know that Sri Krishna was deliberately calling their wives. The astonishing thing is that his flute melody was especially trained to enter only the ears of the gopis and no one else. If others also heard the sound of the flute, then Krishna's parents and others would run to the spot in anticipation of some calamity, thinking, "Why has he gone to the secluded forest in the night when everyone is sleeping?" Shri Krishna attracts everyone by his innate sweetness, so naturally the gopis also go to see him. But they were stopped by the gopas because nighttime was not the proper time to go out. Even if the Vrajvasi gopas had come to know that the gopis were with Shri Krishna in that secluded forest for the whole night, they might not feel any resentment because the Vrajvasis have a very special affection for Krishna. But some semblance of resentment must have been there. The reason is that the residents of Vraj consider that Shri Krishna is the sole reason for their lives. If he spends the whole night with the other men's wives, then he has transgressed social etiquette and Vedic injunctions. This would have astonished them, and they would have become worried for his welfare. This would make them develop some anger towards him, and they would resent their wives and daughters for their inappropriate behavior. In the present verse, Shukadeva Goswami says that the cowherd men saw their wives near them inside the house, so there is no reason to show any kind of envy or resentment towards Krishna. In the Padma Purana Srishti Khanda, Vishnu gives a benediction to the Gopas, the founders of the family line of his beloveds in some previous age. It says, So here's the benediction to the Gopas. When Nanda and the other cowherd men will incarnate on the earth, I will also ride amongst you and play with your daughters. Sorry, I will reside amongst you and play with your daughters. That play will be so pure that no one's heart will be tainted by anger, envy, or any other negative feeling. The Vrajavasis have an inborn affection for Krishna, so they cannot hold any resentment towards him. To say that they did not feel envy for Krishna due to the effect of Maya contradicts this point. Actually, people of this world are envious of Bhagavan because they are deluded by Maya, the external illusory energy. But when free of Maya, they are attracted to him. Mohitas tasya mayaya. The Vrajavasis did not feel any resentment towards Bhagavan due to the effect of Maya. To say this is contrary to the explanation given here. To reconcile this contradiction, manyamanaha, they thought, is to be joined with mohita, deluded. Deluded by Yogamaya, they thought their wives were at home. Otherwise, we will get involved in arguments and counter-arguments about Sri Krishna and will not arrive at any conclusion. Those who cannot understand the cowherd's genuine concern for Krishna's welfare see the gopis as being envious of him, and their unfounded suspicions about him must be eradicated. The above-mentioned conclusions dislodges the contradictions. Sri Krishna is completely absorbed in loving exchanges with his dear ones, and this Maya, Yogamaya, understands this automatically. Even without the instruction of Krishna, she knows what to do, like a very expert minister of an emperor. By her arrangements, Sri Krishna is able to enjoy the topmost pleasure. Even in preceding Leelas, she assisted in this way. So Sri Shukadeva Goswami says that Yogamaya is the doer, she is the karta, and that is why in the initial verse of Raslila, he says, Yogamayam upashrita, took shelter of Yogamaya. Yogamaya is the special potency for accomplishing all of Sri Krishna's pastimes. If by scriptural evidence it is established that the gopis are the eternal svakiya of Krishna, his own wives, then the word tasya, him, his own illusory potency, in the verse at hand becomes meaningless. When one meets with his own wife, no envy is aroused. Thus, the great personalities have joined tasya with dharan, wives, to show the underlying meaning that they are his eternal consorts. If the explanation is presented in this way, then any seeming breaches in social etiquette, that Krishna is the upapati, the paramour, that the gopis would be lying in someone else's bed, that the Vrajavasis feel resentment for Krishna, and that the gopis' behavior is improper, all these anomalies which have been enacted to heighten the excitement of the Leela are nullified. All these anomalies are nullified. Shri Krishna's beloved gopis were not in the houses when they were meeting with him in the forest. Yogamaya placed duplicate forms of the gopis next to their husbands. The cowherd men believed these duplicates to indeed be their wives. They did not experience any difference between Krishna's beloveds and these Vismalis. Is it vice? Yeah. Oh, I remember coming across this word once before. Anyways, it's their exact copies. Okay. Facsimile. Okay, it's facsimile. So they did not experience any difference between Krishna's beloveds and these facsimiles, because the Vrajavasis were all illusioned, mohita, by Yogamaya. What the heck? Whatever. It must be so. It must be so because the glories of chaste young women are never defeated in any way. What more can be said about someone who accepts Sri Bhagavan as her husband? Gargacharya affirms this in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.8.18 by Kaimutika Nyaya. Anyone who has love for the eminent Sri Krishna cannot be defeated by any enemy. According to this evidence, the glories of the Lord's devotees never diminish. So what to speak about his special beloveds? In regard to protecting the sanctity of the social etiquette of faithful wives, one can refer to the story of the duplicate image of Sri Sita Devi, as told in the latter part of the 32nd chapter of the Uttara section of Kurma Purana. All chaste wives are equal to the consort of Lord Shiva, Rudrani. There is no doubt that such women can never be defeated by anyone. For the moral benefit of the statements, for the moral benefit of the general masses, and to show the responsibilities of a chaste wife, Sita Devi, the wife of Dasharati Ram, Sri Ram, who is celebrated in the three realms of existence, renounced royal pleasures and left for the forest full of violent animals with her husband. There she stayed in the Panchavati forest in a hut of dried leaves made by Sri Lakshman, as if she was experiencing pleasures found in Nandakanan, the forest of Indra. Then Ravan, the all-conquering, extremely powerful king of the demons, being captivated by Sri Devi's unparalleled beauty, exercised his demoniac powers to create illusion and transformed himself into a very energetic and peaceful sage. With the sinister motive to abduct her, he began roaming all around her cottage in the lonely forest. As Sita Devi was a devoted wife, that demon was unable to hide his evil intention. At that time, Sri Ramachandra was absent, and she was all alone in the hut. Thus, for her protection, with folded hands, she started glorifying Lord Agnidev, the god of fire, as she remembered Sri Ramachandra. The demigods will certainly respond to a chaste lady's simple prayer. Therefore, Agnidev appeared, and desiring Ravan's death, um, um, sorry. Desiring Ravan's death, Agnidev created a shadow form of Sita Devi and protected the real Sita Ji by hiding her. Seeing her shadow form, the king of demons kidnapped her and took her to the island of Lanka in the middle of the ocean. Later on, that king of the demons was killed at the hand of Sri Ramachandra, who was accompanied by Lakshman. Sri Ram was apprehensive to accept Sita. To instill trust in the general citizens, Maya Sita entered the fire, which devoured her, and Agnidev offered the real Sita Devi to Sri Ramachandra, and they all returned to Ayodhya. Therefore, the way Agnidev protected the chaste Sita Devi with his deluding powers, similarly, Yogamaya exercised her illusory powers and protected Sri Krishna's eternal beloveds by hiding them from the Vrajvasis. In adherence to this story, the subject matter at hand has been resolved. Wow, this verse has long purport. Oops. Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Thakur's Sārārtha Darśinī. One might question that as Bhagavan Sri Krishna dallied with the Vraj maidens the whole night, their husbands and in-laws did not see these ladies in the house. So why did they not express any anger towards Krishna? To remove this apprehension, Shukadeva Gosvāmī speaks this verse na. The Vrajavasis were under the influence of Bhagavan Yogamaya. The Vrajavasis were under the influence of Bhagavan's Yogamaya. The word Maya in the verse refers to Yogamaya and not the external illusory potency. The associates of Bhagavan are not influenced by the external Maya. Only those who are affected by the illusory potency become indifferent to Bhagavan. But in the Gopas, no symptom of indifference to the Lord was seen. Yogamaya enchanted them. When the gopis went for Abhisar with Krishna, Yogamaya created duplicate gopis and bewildered their husbands. The gopas saw that the gopas saw their wives in their houses, so they never felt any anger towards Krishna. Ujjvala Nilamani 332. In Ujjvala Nilamani 332, it is said, Maya kalpita tadrik stri shilane nanasuyubhi na jatu vrajadevinam patibhi sahasangama. Krishna's beloved gopis are the crest jewels of all chaste women and are brimming over with prem. These Vrajdevis have only the conception of being the wives of the gopas, as, in fact, they never had any intimate contact with these so-called husbands. These marriages were arranged to create the special exhilaration that comes in a paramour relationship. The gopas were husbands in name only. They never had any physical relations with their wives. At the time of Abhisar, these gopas were eating, drinking, and being served by these shadow gopis, who are identical in form and nature with their originals. Thus, the cowherd men had no reason to find fault with Krishna. Yoga Maya is the spiritual potency, so her actions hold true for all time. Even when this material world is annihilated, the Gopa's conception of the gopis being their wives continues on. By Yoga Maya's arrangement, these Gopas did not have any intimate contact with these duplicate gopis. These duplicate gopis are the exact replicas of the originals. So even with these, any kind of intimacy would be improper. It may be said that these duplicates were in the houses and perhaps shared the bed also, but Yogamaya reconciled this also because she removed all lusty feelings in these gopas. When the original gopis came back to their respective homes after romancing with Krishna in the forest, Yogamaya removed the duplicates. Yogamaya removed the duplicates. Okay, so we'll read this first and then we'll end. Not way too long. Okay. Brahmaratra upavrite vasudevanumodita anishantya yayorgopya swagrahan bhagavat priya. After the long night of Brahma had passed and morning was coming, Bhagavan Shri Krishna ordered his beloveds to return to their homes. The gopis unwillingly went back to their houses because their every act is meant for pleasing Krishna. Śrīla Samipad's Bhāvārtha Dīpikā. Brahma Ratri, Brahma Muhurta, the 1.5 hours before sunrise, Upavrite, came to an end. Śrīla Jīva Gosvāmīpad's Vaiṣṇava Toṣaṇī. After reconciling all the questions related to the topic at hand, Sri Shukadeva Goswami concludes the entire narration. With the word anichantyo, reluctantly, he indicates that the gopis were drowning in the ocean of transcendental bliss and were still unsatisfied. At the end of the night of Brahma, they were still dallying with Krishna. Just as morning was coming, they reached the edge of the forest near Vraj, and seeing that the time was right, they proceeded to their respective houses. One might object that they had given up everything for Krishna, so why should they go back even at that time? The reason is that Sri Vasudeva commanded them to do so because at that time Krishna had to be present in Nanda Bhavan to be with his father Nanda and make him happy. In the morning, Sri Nanda Maharaj especially remembers his dear son after being separated the whole night. So Sri Krishna has to come back to his home at this time. Thus, the gopis were also obliged to return to their homes at the same time. Here, the name Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, should be understood as the son of Sri Nanda, because in Gokul Lila, the son of Nanda Maharaja's Nandaputra is eternally present. However, Sri Shukadev uses the name Vasudev in reference to the eighth Vasu, Drona, in his previous life, who is now present within Sri Nanda in this pastime. To indicate this Vasu, the name Vasudev has been used, but actually it means Nanda Nandan only. Anumodita. Shri Krishna ordered the gopis to go back with the promise that he would give more of his association later on. They unwillingly left due to his repeated insistence. Another meaning can be taken. I am always with you, and we dance, sing, and enjoy many other pleasurable pastimes together. I am subjugated by your overwhelming prema. Therefore, I will surely keep my promise to meet with you again. Thus, I am advising all of you to return to your homes. This is the reason why Krishna was humbly requesting each and every Vrajasundari to return home. Meaning in the mood of Aishwarya. The gopis were inspired by Vasudeva Shri Krishna as the supersoul in their hearts to return to their homes, and externally his humble entreaty convinced them to go. Thus Krishna's glories are exhibited. Vasudeva means whose heart is especially pure. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.23 affirms this. One whose consciousness is thoroughly pure, Viśvanātha, is known as Vasudeva. According to this statement spoken by Sri Shiva, the presiding deity of such a pure heart is Vasudeva. If Vasudeva Shri Krishna, being the very form of prema, is in the hearts of the gopis, they are thus subject to his will and are bound to submit to his humble request and return to their houses. The question may come, Krishna had given up the association of the Vraj Devis, so how could they now agree to leave him? Krishna is controlled by prema, and the fruit of prema is getting Krishna's association. So if they gave up his association, then how is it proved that he is controlled by prema? This explains the use of the phrase Bhagavat Priya, those who hold the Lord very dear. Such beloveds can tolerate their own sufferings, but they cannot bear that Krishna should suffer even a tiny bit. Just like a perfect gentleman, Krishna, being controlled by his beloveds, tolerated unbearable separation by sending them back to protect their chastity, social standing, and submission to their families. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Thakur's Sārārtha Darśinī. The long night equivalent to a night of Brahma Ratra, containing 1,000 years. So that long night, quickly, Upa passed, Avrite. At the end of this long, long night, the gopis, upon the order of Sri Vasudeva, reluctantly returned to their houses. It was Sri Krishna's intention to perform so many pastimes in one night. And as he is Satya Sankalpa, everything he desires comes to pass. Thus, whatever desire he had for dancing, singing, and other entertaining escapades, to complete all that, a vast time span was required. To provide that long amount of time, 1,000 yugas entered into one night, 4 prahars, 12 hours, at the Rāsa-pañcādhyāyī. Furthermore, this universe measuring 500 million yojanas, 1 yojana equals 8 miles. So 500 million times 8. So this universe measuring 500 million yojanas entered into the 5 yojanas of Vrindavan. And this was witnessed by Brahmaji at the time of Krishna's Bhojan Lila, his picnic with the cowherd boys. And when Krishna was very young, Mother Yashoda tied unlimited rope together to bind him, but was not successful. And in his mouth she saw vast universes. Thus it is seen that nothing is impossible for him. Sri Laghu Bhagavatamrita confirms this. Lord Shri Krishna, All of his dear associates, his Dham and time are inconceivably powerful. Nothing is impossible for them. Vasudevanumodita. To ensure the to ensure the perfection of our romantic rendezvous, we must keep our cherished love affair secret. Therefore, Sri Krishna instructed the gopis to return to their homes. Alternatively, inspired by Vasudeva, the supersoul in their hearts, the gopis experienced the rising of shyness and fear of their elders. Thus, they reluctantly returned to their houses, even in the face of unbearable separation from their beloved. All right, so that's our reading for today. Sorry, I was falling asleep a little bit there. Uh, and tomorrow is the big day. We finally come to the last verse of Rāsa-pañcādhyāyī. And this is a very, my Gurudev used to quote this verse all the time. There's a very beautiful article, which we'll read tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to read this verse 39 with the commentary. And then we'll read this Raise of the Harmonists article of my Gurudev speaking on this verse. And also maybe we could read something by Śrīla Gosvāmī on this verse. So, yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shri Gurudev Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Srila Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupa Anuga Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Pata Das Raghunath Shar Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Radha Kuni Shama Kuni Munaganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai Shri Rāsa-pañcādhyāyī Ki Jai Shri Śrīla Śrīdhara Swami Pad Ki Jai, Śrīla Jīva Goswami Pad Ki Jai, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura Ki Jai, Shri Sarvaraja Devi Gana Ki Jai, Shri Raseshwari, Shri Vrishabhanu Nandini, Shrimati Radha Thakurani Ki Jai, Shri Vijendra Nandan Sham Sundar, Shri Krishna Chandra Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams, everybody. See you all tomorrow. Haribo Sudevi Didi. Dandavat pranams. Right, Jai Shri Radhe.